Good morning, all you red shirt patriots. Welcome to the, 369th consecutive Friday meeting of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots. A hearty thank you for joining us this morning in support of America's warfighters currently deployed around the world representing America's interest. And your demonstrated support and patriotism is undeniable. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do any of you folks just happen to occasionally watch the local TV morning show called Sonora Living on ABC Channel 15? Well, back in April, I was invited to appear on the show for a brief, and I mean very brief, segment that they often do on veteran initiatives here in the area. Well, the segment aired early last week, and I was able to get a plug in for our East Valley Red Friday Patriots program, so here is that video. So is that your stamp of approval? Hey, I had my 15 seconds of fame, so. Oh, goodness. You know, last Friday, I shared a brief story about my paternal grandparents, Grandpa Ed and Grandma Ellen. And this morning, I want to share a story about Grandpa Ed and my father, Richard Lafitte Nation, as told to me by my dad. My dad said that he was only 10 years old when this particular event happened, so that would have been in the year 1912, when a dime would have the purchasing power today of $3.50. That was also the year of the tragic sinking of the Titanic. So Grandpa Ed, son Richard, and their donkey were traveling to their little East Texas town to pick up some much-needed supplies. And on the very first part of the journey, Richard rode on the donkey, and Grandpa Ed walked alongside. And as they traveled along the old dirt road, they happened to pass some country folks who very curtly remarked that it was a shame that the old man was walking and the boy was riding the donkey. Well, Grandpa and his son thought, hey, maybe the critics are right. So they changed positions, and Grandpa mounted the donkey. Well, later they passed some folks who remarked, what a shame that the old man makes this little boy walk. So Grandpa and son then decided they would both walk. Well, soon they passed some people who remarked that they were stupid to walk when they had a decent donkey to ride. So they both hopped on and rode the donkey. Well, then they passed some people who shamed them by saying how awful it was for them to place such a heavy load on that poor donkey. Well, Grandpa and son said the people were probably right. So they tied the donkey's legs and they slid a pole through his legs to carry him for the remainder of the trip into town. And as they approached their destination in this little town, they had to cross this narrow bridge over a narrow canal. But surprisingly, they lost their grip on the animal. And to their dismay, the donkey, with his feet tied together, fell into the canal and drowned. Now, I was somewhat disheartened when my dad told me about the donkey drowning, as most folks would be, I'm sure. But in my misdirected focus on the story's ending with the drowning of the donkey, I overlooked the real emphasis of the story, the moral of the story, the lessons to be learned, if you will. And after telling me this story, my dad looked at me and he said, "Richard, if you haven't figured it out yet, let me explain the real meaning of the story that I've just told you." He said, "The moral of the story is this, boy. If you try to please everyone, you might as well kiss your ass." This morning, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, a gentleman who has garnered countless accolades for his tireless advocacy of veteran initiatives, especially as it pertains to veterans who suffer with PTSD and veteran suicide. Travis Burns originates from the Beaver State of Oregon, and in 1987, at age 21, he elected to enlist in Uncle Sam's Army, where he was trained and assigned an infantry MOS of 11 Bravo and later 11 Hotel, which is heavy anti-armor weapons crewman. During his term of military service, Travis served in the Korean demilitarized zone for a 13-month tour, followed by a brief stint back stateside, and then a deployment to the Middle East during the Persian Gulf War. And following his departure from the armed forces, Travis was employed in the transportation and rental equipment industries, where he specialized in sales and operations. In 2014, Travis volunteered to work with Operation Freedom Bird, primarily Arizona-based nonprofit organization that provides combat veterans with an annual, fully funded 4-day healing journey to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. And that initiative helps veterans from all conflicts process PTSD, grief, and the transition from active duty. The term Freedom Bird originally referred to the commercial aircraft that flew service members home at the end of their deployment during the Vietnam War. Beginning in 2015, Travis volunteered to serve on the working group for Be Connected, a statewide initiative for preventing veteran suicide. And during the dozen years since, he has volunteered with the Phoenix VA Hospital Mental Health Advocacy Council and the Ripple Effect, organizations that are focused on improving veterans' mental health and preventing veteran suicide. An author, peer support and resource navigator, Travis Burns focuses on moral injury and veteran suicide. He is an active veteran advocate, author of Uncomfortably Numb, a grunt's perspective on suicide, and the immediate past chair of Unified Arizona Veterans. Furthermore, his background and local community work involve veteran advocacy by providing critical peer support and advocacy for Arizona military veterans, and Travis presents Unified Arizona Veteran Scholarships and Copper Star Awards. Travis is also known for his literary work. As a writer for Traveling Soldier Media, he focuses on PTSD and veteran mental health awareness. And if recognition of his work on veteran suicide and moral injury, Travis was inducted into the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame Society in 2019. I might add that Travis is a prolific songwriter and teaches songwriting at Arizona State University through the Office of Veteran and Military Academic Engagement. Joining Travis today is his wife, Sherry. Sherry, we are elated to have you with us today as well. As many of you are aware, the month of June is PTSD Awareness Month. And tomorrow, June 27, is PTSD Awareness Day. Here to speak on the topic, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Travis Burns. Thank you.
All good? Oh, sounds like it. Hey, it's great to be here today. You all are so welcoming. It is really nice to be here, to be able to speak about PTSD and to be able to hear what people have to tell me about it. I didn't show up with all the answers. What I did show up with is I know how to recognize the questions. I know where to find a lot of those answers. And it's very fitting that, June is PTSD Awareness Month and tomorrow is the day that they choose to recognize that. Yep, got through that. So what I would like to talk about with you today is military-specific PTS, post-traumatic stress, and PTSD, and what it means, the difference between those two things. So this is a lived experience examination of this. I am not a clinician. I chose to not take that path because I believe that while clinicians have their value, those of us that are able to learn about these things and speak to those things, it is our duty to go out into the world and to find the people that have the questions and wonder, is this really something I need to be looking at? Is this really something that affects me? The answer is yes. I'm standing here today because a friend of mine who also served in the Gulf War, and I don't know how I didn't know this guy in school. He was a year ahead of me in Globe, not a real big high school. He finally told me, I had been out of the military since '91. They told me that they couldn't serve me because I was a Gulf War person. The statutes did not allow it. Turned me away from a VA in the South and turned me away from this Phoenix VA. I got turned away from there. And you got a cable going out or all good? All good? Okay. He told me, he says, you know something, Travis? You have these migraines, you have all these musculoskeletal issues, you're all tore up. He says, don't trust the VA. Trust me. Because he had stayed up with the VA largely at the behest of his mother, who did not take well to when he did not want to go to the VA. So she kind of dragged him down there a few times. And I did, and I'm glad I did. I trusted him. He was a fellow veteran, just like there's so many of us here today. And I stand here today hoping that if anybody in here is questioning if that's worth their time, I'm going to tell you it is. The suicide rate for people in VA care is better. I don't know why. I don't care why. All I care is that it's better. So I refer people to the VA. There are those of us in this gathering today. We all have some of our own reasons why the VA has not done what maybe they said they do, the way things were after Vietnam. I remember all that. I have a disabled uncle. He walked on his way to Vietnam and came back in a wheelchair. My entire life, that man has dealt with the VA. So I understand where that comes from. But I stand here today hoping that whatever I have to say and whatever I hear from you is going to help us reach an understanding. There's some stuff in here that is going to cause people to get a little wound up. This is going to bring up some emotions and stuff, and I tell you that from the truth. I lived with untreated PTSD from 1989, which was my tour on the demilitarized zone, all the way until 2010 when I finally listened to my friend and he told me to go ahead and go back. So I know what that means. So if anybody has something going on in their mind or whatever, and I don't say this because I'm so scared somebody's going to get upset or whatever, it's because I understand what we're up against. I understand what PTSD is. I've seen it in hundreds of faces. I've seen affected by this stuff. They think, hey, I'm okay, and it'll be that one little thing. And anybody in here that's been downrange and understands, you can smell something. I had a guy get set off on PTSD one time by a jackhammer, which unfortunately for him, he went past it with his window down, and it had the exact same cyclic rate as an M60 machine gun. So you can imagine how good he felt about that. To say that that guy freaked out and had a little moment, that's kind of an understatement. I have another friend that was driving to the VA on the freeway and there had been a car fire there. And all he could think, because he was a veteran of Iraq, is there's an IED that went off. People are dead. This is a bad place. So he did not do well with that. So that's why I bring this up. Warfare is a hard business. There's nothing in the world harder than organized warfare, systemic warfare. So when we're looking at each other and we're sitting here thinking about these things, I'm going to ask you to be kind to yourself. So we already went through who Travis is, and like I said, I do moral injury and veteran suicide. They brought me to Freedom Bird. They brought me to the Unified Arizona Veterans, the UAV, and that's what brought me here today. Wherever those two things go, wherever they take me, I go. I appreciate your time here today. So like I said, we're talking about PTS. There are differences between PTS and PTSD, especially among veterans, people served, and I focus on the United States military. Post-traumatic stress is something that happens after a traumatic event. And why is it military specific? I focus on that from a lived experience perspective. I lived it. 20 years of untreated PTSD. The whole time I was on the road afterwards, I had to hold a CDL and professional licenses. I didn't drink, I didn't do any drugs. But I'm here to tell you, if you are awake long enough, you will hallucinate, you will see some things. You will get whacked out of your mind, and that's what happened to me. And it didn't happen just one or two times. I come from a lived experience perspective. I've dealt with hundreds of veterans that have talked to me. I have 4 trips on Freedom Bird. I am still in a PTSD group over at the Phoenix Vet Center. And what we know is we know the vast and terrible truth of war. Now, of course, we're going to go out here in the world and people will make, I got PTSD from standing in line at Starbucks. Well, no, you're about to get PTSD because I'm going to generate that donkey. It's tough to follow a picture of a dude kissing an ass, but you know what? You're about to have some PTSD right now because I'm going to do you a favor and show you what it means. But through possession of that knowledge and anybody that's adjacent to that knowledge, my wife, your wives, your spouses, your family, they learn about that. And we become set apart from our culture and societies of origin where we come from. I tell people, I said, you know what? This world is what we do to get along. We all go to high school, we're nice, we go ride on R.E.D. or we help grandma across the street or wherever. You go to combat, that's the real world. That's life and death. That is life during death. It does not get any more real than that. That sticks in your mind. That's where PTS comes from, and that's what turns it into PTSD. So, I'm getting there. Okay, that's what separates post-traumatic stress. You can get in a car wreck and you're going to have post-traumatic stress because it was a trauma. It's in the name. PTS is stress that results from trauma. You can fall and bang your head on the bathtub and be stressed out because you traumatized yourself. You can suffer spiritual trauma, emotional trauma, mental trauma. That's something that hurts. And the PTS, the post-traumatic stress, is what happens from trauma. Okay? Trauma is not some word that people made up to make fun of other people. It's a definition. There are people in this room that have endured trauma. They've experienced trauma, and I'm one of them. But what happens with post-traumatic stress? You get in a car wreck. You get in something that you encounter in the ordinary business of life. You're like, wow, that sucked. I got in a car wreck, but you know what? I'm okay. Totaled the car. I'm okay. Wife's okay. Kids okay. I'll get another car. Might have to do some therapy. Might have an ambulance chasing lawyer find me and we file a lawsuit, or we go see one of them guys on TV to get in a wreck. We got a check kind of deal. That's the stress that results from trauma. And it's okay to be stressed by that. Life is not a cakewalk. Life can be hard. Life can be tough, and we extend grace to other people and say, hey, guess what? Life can be tough. That's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation because you don't get in a car wreck every day. You just don't. But what is the disorder part? This kind of stress, it's emotional in nature. And without intervention, it usually does not diminish or resolve itself over time. So if you get in a car wreck and you go home and you think, wow, that was rough, I'm going to pop me a couple aspirin, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to chill out, I'm going to watch whatever kind of ding-dong thing I watch to relax, and I'm going to sleep a little bit. And what happens? You go to sleep, memories encode in your mind, that was a rough deal. And over time I got in that car wreck, but I walked away from it, had to go get a new car. Hey, that's okay. That kind of stuff will go down over time. That's just part of life, okay? But when you have a post-traumatic stress disorder, one of the things that happens is you do not sleep very well. And who in this room, tell me the last time anybody in this room slept 8 hours through the night? All right, I'm still waiting. I'm waiting. So I went to my intake up in Globe. That's where we were at when I went back into the VA system, and I got this doctor. He was a flight surgeon during the Gulf War. So there was not a whole bunch of BS in that cat. So I talked to him, and he goes, tell me about that good solid 8 hours of sleep you get. And I said, I get it every week. And the guy just looked at me and he says, what do you mean? I said, I usually make it to 8 hours a week of sleep. And he just looked at me like I was a Martian. I said, I don't sleep. I stop moving because I can't keep moving anymore. And then when I think I can get up and move some more, I move some more. I don't sleep very well. That's what happens when it doesn't resolve over time. What is trauma? It means wound, shock, or injury. You can be wounded in your heart, your mind, your physical body. You can be wounded in your soul. That's what mortal injury is. Now, there's a part of us that we have, we can look at our body, we think with our mind, the heart beats the blood, okay? So we're all doing all that kind of stuff. But there's an intangible dimension to our life that has a soul, okay? We have things in our mind that keep us going. We're like, this is a soul. What is the meaning of life? You can be wounded in your soul. That's what moral injury is. There's a lot of kinds of trauma. So we're looking at some of that might be experienced in military service. It's included. It does not limit to combat service. The reason I say that, the year I was in Korea, we lost 17 people in the 2nd Infantry Division died. It's, Dick was saying right there, 182 countries, right? 172? People are out there right now doing our country's business. Some of them are going to die because the scope and scale of the U.S. military is almost mind-boggling. It is bigger than a human can imagine. I remember flying into R.E.D for the Gulf War, and I looked, and this is out of a plane. Okay, a man standing 6 feet can see 12 miles to the clear horizon. Imagine what I saw coming in there, and there's this airfield lined with planes as far as I could see. I was 1,000 feet in the air getting ready to land. And when you look at the military, the U.S. military, and some of us have been involved in some of them big operations, it's mind-boggling. So those people are over there, and they're going to get caught up in things that may not be active combat. They're going to get hurt. I think it was 11 guys died on the Iwo Jima when a steam pipe exploded in the Persian Gulf during that. So there's a lot of misconceptions about trauma, misconceptions about the word. If somebody says they experience trauma, that doesn't make them weak. It doesn't make them sensitive, too emotional, or unable to handle life. That's none of that. What that is you realize that, you're a human being walking through life, and you can be hurt. You can sustain an injury. That's what a trauma is. It's not somebody made up to make people feel bad about themselves. That's why it's in post-traumatic stress disorder. And that doesn't mean you're weak or unable to handle life. It means you're a human being. And it's not always intense and simple to identify, and this is where I come in when I talk to people about that. Trauma can be subtle. It can be almost imperceptible. Sometimes it takes time to perceive trauma. Now, when I would go in person before COVID, and I still go to these things, the Veterans Mental Health Advocacy Council at Phoenix VA and the Veteran Family Advisory Council, they used to be just down the street or down the hallway from the guy that does the presumptive exposures at VA for all of us that, like I did that tour in Korea, so I have also been exposed to Agent Orange. Every Vietnam vet that I know has had prostate cancer or is on their way to it. They're either to it, in it, on the other side of it, dealing with it. So I would go in there, and I cannot count the number of times I'd sit there, and there's some Vietnam-age gentleman sitting there, and he's got a bunch of old papers in his hand. I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? Oh, I'm not doing so good. And I'm like, what's going on? Well, I'm here, when I got back, they spit at me, they called me bad names, said I was a baby killer, turned me away from the VA, said, you know what, you're not eligible to be in the VFW, it wasn't a war, it was a police, all that stuff, and that sticks in people's mind. So I'd sit and talk to these people and say, what's going on? Well, I got to go do this presumptive thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here. Here's my stuff. And he says, you know what, that guy's at lunch, because our meeting was right after lunch, so I always got there right before lunch was over. And the guy'd be like, this is a lot. I don't know if I want to deal with this. And I would sit there with him. I tell him, you know what, that guy's name is Bill. I did my presumptive exposure through Bill. I'll sit here with you, and when Bill shows up, we'll go in there and talk to him. You okay with that? Oh, yeah, man, here. I said, hey, you tell me whatever you want to. You don't even have to tell me your name. We're brothers. We're going to be here. We're going to get this done. And when you get in there and talk to Bill, Bill's going to get you started on the right path. This is how you get involved in this deal. I said, and then you're sitting here, you're all tore up. If you got a family, think of them. This is the pathway into the VA care that will help you take care of your family. Trauma is similar to electricity. You cannot see electricity. You cannot smell it or hear it. You can only perceive its effects. One of the effects of electricity is me up here yapping, okay? Another effect is them ceiling fans, them lights. Heat and sparks and magnetism is what turns them fans. Electric shock are some of the effects of electricity. You can't smell electricity or see it or pour it in a bottle and take it somewhere. You can only perceive its effects. And sometimes we don't see trauma. We perceive it by the effects it has on us, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. You get up and say, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I'm starting to wonder, and here's the one I picked up from the younger people, I don't even know if the juice is worth the squeeze anymore. That is a post-traumatic stress response right there. And there might even be a little moral injury sprinkled in that one. So anger, fear, shock, sadness, and grief are some of the emotional effects trauma can have on people, on human beings. My personal one that I'm not real proud of, and it caused me to do some things that I carry shame to this day, is rage. People get up in my face, or we're going to have a problem, or people are going to do some dumb stuff. You know what? I have a prepackaged response for that, and I have spent many years becoming sociable, so I don't just let that go. That stuff can work on you, and it can work on you over time, and it can work to great effect. It can make you into somebody your family don't recognize. You can look in the mirror, you don't recognize, and make you into a person you don't want to be no more. You know, when you got all these hormones and stuff going through you, arousal hormones, you're like, you know what, I'm going to just like that guy in Full Metal Jacket, remember, Show Me Your War Face? Where you get a little jacked up and you go into a negotiation or somewhere you know somebody's going to lean on you, you just get your war face and go in there, and all they want is out of that room. Oh, hey, no problem, Travis, here you go. Well, I don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. You want to be somebody come home and say, hey, you know what? I got involved in some bad business and I want to have my life back, all right? I want to live a life with people. And if you're doubting that those emotions have that much of an effect on human beings, let's think for a minute. Everyone in this room has no physical reason to be here. You can find breakfast all over this valley. You can find it at your house. Old Mickey will slide you a sandwich. We're here because we are all drawn here by emotions, service, camaraderie, care. We're drawn here to be part of a community. Everybody in here is wearing a red shirt. This is the one I had, so I rolled down here with it. Those are and emotions have very powerful effects upon people. See, there you go. Just dial that back a little bit, right? I'm not afraid of a room like this, so that's all good. And trauma can exert powerful effects on people's physical health, your mental health, relationships, and how a person perceives life. When a person perceives it gets rough, that's where suicide comes from. It's like a little drip. It's a drip in your mind every day. I'm starting to wonder if this is worth it. Is it? It has effects on this. It has effects on your life. And other effects of trauma are a constant state of emotional arousal, like I said, where hormones, you're all jacked up. You know, that sounds great if you're going to go out and fight a grizzly bear, okay? Or if you got to yank a kid out of a street. All right, you want some of them hormones. And I remember my therapist telling me this. I was sitting there, and I had been in 3-time-a-week therapy up in Globe for almost a year. And I told her, I said, I can't relax. I relax, people die. I don't pay attention, people die, because I was in hard businesses when I got out, trucking, equipment rental. People die in construction every day. And she says, hey, if you need that stuff, it'll be there. I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever. So I had a couple of instances where I became aware that, you know what, she was right. Those are instincts. Those things are within us. If we need them, they'll be there. And it may not seem that big a deal until it goes on for years, decades, where you're all jacked up. All of a sudden, your heart skips for no reason. You have arrhythmia. You are tired all the time. You're wore out, because here's what happens when them hormones hit you, like you're in combat, or you got to do that thing, right? We're going to get it on. Whatever it is, we're going to, when you go through basic training, they rewire that fight or flight. It turns into fight and fight some more. It's not supposed to be flight. It's fight some more, and then if you still want some more, we're going to fight some more. That's how that goes. So if you get all jacked up like that, that adrenaline, the cortisol, all of those hormones take an effect on your body. Make you old before your time. It'll wear you out, and you'll be all jacked up. It's like the worst caffeine rush you ever had, except you did it to yourself. And they increase wear and tear on your body. They cause difficulty sleeping. Remember that 8 hours a week you sleep, or you think you do? And what happens when you don't sleep very well is that you don't process your memories. Like, we're going to go home tonight, and whatever we do, however we sleep or whatever, we're going to think, that guy got up and yapped for a while, seen a picture of a guy kissing a donkey. I'm going to remember that because we processed our memory, right? But the difficulties that you experience in some of these things, they keep it in the front of your mind for a long time, even to this day. Am I going to stand here and tell you that, I've been in counseling all this time, I've done these treatments and all this kind of stuff, I'm all good? Nope. It's an everyday thing. Every day is a brand new day. You got to get up and say, hey, you know, I walked an inch today. I walked a mile yesterday. I'm going to get there a little bit. It comes and goes, and you got to deal with it every single day. And it causes people, especially military veteran individuals, to live in an increased state of situational awareness. And I've seen this happen. You all have seen it happen. We're sitting there, a guy goes in, camps out with his back to the wall at the restaurant because something's going to happen. And, you know, that's people make parody out of that. They laugh about it. Oh, you know, here's this guy. He's all cranked up all the time. He's so paranoid or whatever. And you know what? Everybody wants to be your friend when something bad happens, because all of a sudden now you're not paranoid. You're thinking, see, they call that hypervigilance. I don't use that word. It does not fit us. We in this room were trained to resolve situations. Your platoon sergeant, the LT, whoever it is, company commander, hey, we got a situation. They don't come up and say, is everybody hypervigilant? Did everybody bring their toy unicorn today? No. You got your ammo? Are them grenades ready to go? Did you pull one side of that pin? Come on now, we're going to get it on. So, all right, so I use the term situational awareness. And we're used to approaching life as a series of situations with different degrees of urgency. So, addressing these situations, we get used to this. It becomes part of our lifestyle. The use or presence of violence, injury, or death, and that is prevalent in all dimensions of the warfare environment, and that includes training. People have to be trained and acclimatized to the warfare environment. That's why there are suicides in basic training. Doesn't make those people weak. Doesn't mean they can't handle it. It means they are faced with the vast and terrible truth of war, and it really gets to some of them. They're kids. I look at some of them ding-dongs I went through basic training with. I was an old man. I turned 21 the day I graduated basic training. I was an old man, complete with grandpa written on my stuff. 21 years old, and here comes these little twerps. They don't know any better. So when they learn that stuff in training, when you know these things, you can reach out to military veteran individuals. You can hear what they're not saying. You can hear what they say. And all of my presentations and everything I do, my songwriting, I encode things in it to where people like me will hear it and understand. Maybe a spouse will hear it and understand, and she'll be able to say, hey, you know what? I didn't know that that's what that meant. I didn't know. And now, wait a minute, because I'm looking out here, and every time I do one of these things, I see light bulbs going off. And I'm happy about that. So here is the way a lot of military veteran individuals approach a situation. Here's an operations order. Now, I cut this out of one of my other presentations, and I tell people at the VA, and there's this movie out right now called Pressure about Eisenhower getting ready to roll the dice and say, hey, when are we going to invade? So what they basically did is they told Eisenhower, hey, fly over to Europe, to Great Britain, put together an army, and liberate Europe. Let us know if you need anything. He had a situation, he had a mission, he was told to execute it. Here's all the service and support you need. In the Marine Corps, that number 4 is administration. And then command and signal. Hey, go do that. Let us know if you need anything. Let us know how it's going. Call us when it's over. And people, they look at that and they think, and everyone in this room has probably heard this. Oh, you went in the military. They shrunk your head. You can't think for yourself. You're regimented. I've met some of the smartest people in the world in the military. That is not true. Nobody's head got shrunk. I'll tell you what happened. They simplify this thing down like that so you can execute this mission. It might be 40 below zero. I have 11 months in the field downrange in below zero weather without any heat. I am service connected for frostbite from my tour in Korea. Yes, it gets cold in Korea. You have to be able to do that stuff. You might be dehydrated. You might be hungry. You might be wounded. You might have been awake so long you're seeing people that aren't there. But you're like, hey, they came along for the mission, as long as you don't cause any trouble, come on. You got to be able to do that stuff. That's why we keep it simple, okay? That's what a 5-paragraph operations order for. But earlier, when we saw that shock, fear, sadness, and grief, it has effects on human beings. How PTSD, which that's where the disorder part comes from, and I'm not one of these that says, don't call it PTSD, it's not a disorder. You know what? In your mental faculties and what we do in life, it kind of is a disorder because you're not processing memories like a human being should be doing. You're not saying, hey, I had a traumatic event. I'm going to think about it for a while. I'm going to sleep a few days, and then I'm going to look at it. Like, remember, everybody says, hey, why don't you sleep on that decision before you make this decision, right? We've heard that. Well, that's where memories come from. But when you're in combat, those kind of things, they do not resolve because that's an abnormal situation. It is so far outside the experience of most human beings. when you try to tell somebody, you might as well be speaking Martian. The experience does not convey. You have to live it to understand it, to know it fully. Now, there are people in this room that are adjacent to the military veteran space, and they know a lot, and I put my wife in that category. She was with me when I was in. We're going to be 41 years this year. So she has seen all of these things, but she will tell you, be the first one to tell you, I don't understand like what Travis does. I don't understand that kind of stuff. Heart and soul, mind and body. Now, I was talking to Dick, and I said, you know what? I have some high-speed graphics. And there they are, okay? But then keep in mind the simplifying part. I want you to meet Sticky, okay, because he's a stick guy. I see you all grab that one right. So we got old Sticky, and Sticky and I, we're old friends. We met in grade school when I would draw stick figures in my homework. I would draw it on napkins. It drove my mother bananas. It drove the teacher crazy. They'd say, well, we know it's one of Travis's homework assignments because Sticky is rappelling down the side. Sticky is jumping out of an airplane. He's flying an airplane. He's driving a race car. He did it all, man. Sticky was a great dude. I just drew that stuff all the time. But then, after my tour on the Korean DNZ and the service in the Gulf War, I didn't draw anymore. I didn't. Sticky laid low for a lot of years, almost like he was someone I used to know. Hadn't forgotten him. I just didn't draw anymore. Something I enjoyed. Now, how many of us in this room had something we used to enjoy and it kind of leached away over the years? You kind of, well, maybe I forgot where I put it. Maybe I used to draw. Maybe I used to paint. Maybe I used to do woodwork. Maybe I used to build hot rods with my kid. Whatever it was, it kind of leached away because PTS and PTSD kind of took it away. But then one day, I'm talking to a PTSD group at the Mesa Vet Center, and we're discussing what we're doing right now, the relationship between PTSD, PTS, and moral injury. I needed to illustrate a point I was making. That's why this whiteboard's right here, in case I need it. And I needed to help them veterans, I needed to help them visualize what I was saying. What does this mean? They're kind of looking at me like, what are you saying, Travis? And old Sticky come out of retirement. I'm going to tell you something. He come out swinging. We wrote some stuff on that board, and them guys are like, oh, okay, there it is. It's not because they're idiots, not because they didn't, it was like, hey, man, this is what it looks like. Here's a picture of it. And I could see they understood it. I can see some of you are understanding. I could see the truth of life or death in their eyes, and they can see it in mine. We were able to understand. There's some of us in this room that are doing that right now because we understand what we've dealt with. That's what all of our hats mean. That's what this place is for, is because we all had to deal with the truth of life or death. And that day, they told me when they had that truth, that when I took it out to share it with others, that I'd do it just like that. Don't get into some big old graphics. Don't have a picture of a brain with a thought in it. So I did. I told them I would. When I go out on the road or when I do presentations, the moral conflict one I has a lot of stick figures in it because I was drawing it on a board as we were talking about it and they were telling me, and like I said, I want to learn from them. So I shared that with you to show something, to illustrate something about PTSD. It can rip things right out of your life. PTSD will tear things out of your life. And it's not shy about it. Things you used to enjoy. You look at that and you look at, I used to draw things and that was funny. I'd do it for my brother in a notebook, draw Sticky and little things and it looked like he was running, like remember Mickey Mouse animations and stuff? That stuff goes away. PTSD will just rip it right out of your life along with joy, happiness, relationships with your family. Just rip it right out. And then after a while you're just like, hey, you're looking at, I used to enjoy this thing and then here's PTSD as the cast a shadow over it. All of a sudden you're like, is it really even worth doing anymore? All these years I've thought of these things. And it takes that stuff out, even like daydreaming, drawing stick figures, just sitting there thinking, who am I? Maybe I'm at a barbecue with my family. Does this mean anything to me? And you're the one sitting off in the corner, caught up in this PTSD. And they can see it. You can see it. You can feel it. And it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to hide. I know the world was not kind about this kind of stuff in the 60s and 70s. Beyond a shadow of a doubt that we as human beings and soldiers, sailors, airmen, service members, all of us, we owe the Vietnam generation a debt because they got PTSD and put it in the DSM book. They put it in there to say, you know what, I'm a human being. I endured trauma in combat in Vietnam. I watched kids get killed. And I lived with that. I personally carry this to this day. I taught young American soldiers, I said, you know what? If you see a kid running at you or a woman, you got to burn them down, man. because they're coming to bring you something. It's not a cold drink. They're going to kill you. And these kids, I could just look, I watched the light go out in their eyes. And they're like, are you kidding? You know, this is well known around the world about the weakness of American fighting men, American soldiers. And I say men, although we're an integrated military, there are women in the military, we're all together. But for a long time, they would use that against the American military. They would use children, they would use women, because we're trained to revere women. We're brought up to say, hey, and I was raised by an old cowboy. And he was not about that disrespect to women. He was all like, hey, that's your mother, that's your sister, you take care of them. And I did. But they use it against us. And that's the kind of stuff that PTSD, you're sitting there running that through your head. You know, oh, now it's a year, now it's 2 years, now it's 20 years, now it's 30 years. So the Vietnam generation brought that discussion into the mainstream and made it to where I can be standing here in front of you today, and I'm not ashamed to say I have PTS and I have PTSD. I've done some hard business in my life. So have you all. So does that mean I'm going to wave my magic wand and we're all going to kumbaya it up? No. Does that mean we're all going to sit here among ourselves and say, hey, you know what? That was some hard business. And to start dealing with it, that doesn't mean we forget. Because I know there's people in here that are thinking, if I let that go, I let them go. I let my dead friends go. I let the names on that wall go. Wall, I've been in that wall many times. I went with the best friend, a guy I ended up going in 2017. I went back to Vietnam with him, or he went back. I accompanied him to Vietnam because he didn't have anybody to go with him. I know all my platoon sergeants were Vietnam vets. I served with many of them. Of course I'll go with you. It doesn't mean we forget those things, the people, the places, the times that are so much a part of our life. There was a psychologist, and you know, even a blind squirrel's going to find a nut now and then. She sounded that up because, of course, she's not a veteran, and she means the best and deals with veterans all the time. She says, those are a part of your life when you were younger. Those are the best of times, those are the worst of times. That's why you can't just separate it out. You were never going to be that alive again. I'm going to tell you that right now. You can smell brass in a weapon chamber. You can see things. You look at your friend and he's looking back at you on an OP, and there's no white. There's no pupil. It's all pupil. Them eyes are dilated, look like the weirdest cat, weirdest drugs you ever seen. And you look at them and your eyes are the same way because you're paying attention. Those things are part of our lives. They're who we are. What we're dealing with PTSD and we're dealing with PTS, that doesn't mean we leave them behind. Okay? All that means is we move those people, those meaningful people, places and times, from a place of presence to a place of memory. That's where they belong. Okay? And if we were sitting here and it was us on that wall, we would tell them what they would tell you. Go ahead and live your life. Go ahead and look at that PTSD. You know, it's okay. I know you're not going to forget us. You can't. But that doesn't mean that you have to suffer the rest of your life to remember me. I know they would. I've had Vietnam veterans tell me that to my face right in front of that wall. In this world, that's one of the holiest places in the world. It's sacred. You know, to me, I go to that wall and I go with respect because I serve with them guys. So I know there's people that got trauma, PTSD. There's people in this room, they're going to see this video and they're caught up in PTSD. And I know if a veteran came through that door right now that I came through and I've never been here before, and everybody in here welcomed me. Hey, we're so glad you came, Travis. Thank you for bringing, like Dick introduced me and said, he's coming here to share his knowledge and hear from you. I'd hear from you guys. Everyone in this room, if a veteran come through that door and he was burdened, she was burdened with PTSD, everyone would receive them with care and concern and tell them you're in the right place. Your brothers and sisters are in here. We know what you're up against. You would tell them that when you were younger, you'd done the best you could back when you was in some serious situations, when you had to deal with some legitimately bad stuff, bad deals, even on the Travis scale of bad deals, and that's a pretty big scale. I don't have to wonder. I know. I've seen it hundreds of times. Everybody in here, I've had guys walk through the door at the vet center 2 or 3 times later. I had to kill a kid in Iraq. He wouldn't put that rucksack down. He wouldn't stop. I had to fire up a car. It was us or them. And then they're coming back here, and now you sit here and turn around a couple times. That was 25 years ago when that September 11th happened. How many of them people you think come back now? How many of them would you ask them to try to cut them years down? I tell them all the time, I don't want to see you out wandering around for 19 years. I don't want to see you wandering around like some of these Vietnam guys that I meet at the hospital, 50 years. Okay? I know you would tell them, you would tell them it's okay. You done some bad business. You had to do some hard things. It's all right if you're tore up over it. It's all right if you're carrying that with you. So if you're carrying PTSD and maybe some trauma, if you're listening to this, you're here now, maybe you're going to see it on YouTube or whatever. We're telling it to ourselves. I'm telling you right now, that's some hard business, and it's okay to admit that. But when you go home, if you're seeing us online, anybody in here, you go home and you tell that person in the mirror they did what best they could back then. Like I told you, I was an old man of 21 when I graduated basic training. I was an old man of 24 when I got out of the Army. 28 months downrange, 2 deployments. And that stuff tore me up for years. I'm wandering around. Of course, it was different then. You know, they had just got PTSD with it was bringing it forth, but now we had that Iraq and Afghanistan deal. These people are coming back, having a lot of the same problems the Vietnam generation had, the Gulf War people had, and we're dealing with it again. So you tell that person in the mirror, I'm asking you to do that. Tell that person you did the best you could with what you had. Don't judge them with your old man eyes. Don't sit there and say, I could have, should have, would have, maybe I did. I was 21 years old. I would watch them knotheads. They would put a protective mask on and jump in the water to see if they could breathe underwater. I mean, kids are dumb, okay? They would do some, I'm not going to get into dumb things, okay? Because, boy, we'd be here all day. I mean, when they'd get to Korea, they'd take them downrange and teach them how to drink napalms, which are soju. You put, oh, wait, I heard a laugh over here. Somebody's had a, yeah. The napalm, they put it in front of you and light it. Now, if you drink it quick, you're okay, because it'll go away. You get about 3 deep in them, and you're not drinking them so quick anymore. And I'd watch these guys because I'd be like, they'd be like, and you could tell the ones that didn't because all their hair from here up was gone. And they had sunburnt nose. I'm talking nose hair too, boy, and they would be all flamed out because they would throw that thing back and they'd forget they got to drink it quick. And their hair's gone, and we'd fall out for 4 minutes. We're in a turtle farm, you know, but being in Korea, it takes a year to get between them 2 buildings, so everybody's a turtle. And I could just see that first sergeant looking out at that thing and seeing all these guys. Didn't have no eyebrows, didn't have no eyelashes. And they do some dumb stuff. That young, you're not going to know what you know now. So be kind to that young person. Look in the mirror, tell them, hey, you know, I wrote a song for Imprints of Honor, which used to be Veteran Heritage Project. I'm like, sometimes I think about the younger me. Sometimes he's the one I see looking back at me in the glass. Be kind to them, all right? They did the best they could. It's okay to try to have a life after trauma. Tell that young person that. It doesn't just go away. You got to deal with every day, but it doesn't have to destroy your life. It does not. Any questions? And keep in mind, hey, Travis, boy, you talk a lot. You ain't much to look at either. That's okay. Whatever you got, man, whoop it on me. And if you don't, that's all right, too. This is the kind of stuff that sits over time. I'll hear from some of you. Dick will let me know you reached out to him or whatever, and that's okay. Sir.
Regarding veteran suicide, I heard yesterday a statistic of 22 veterans daily in the United States die of suicide.
Yes.
Has there been any statistical analysis relevant to those 22 per day that would indicate how many of them were suffering with PTSD?
Yes. Now, here's something that a lot of you may not know, and this is why when I talk about the vast and terrible truth of war, when I talk about the warfare environment to include training, almost 30% of veteran suicides are people that did not deploy to combat. That's the effect that being in the military has on you. And, you know, there's people in here that in the military, we done some things. I mean, we would do the things, and we would go out there and rock and roll whatever it took. And then you go home, maybe you didn't deploy, and then we'd bring home and they would train people to do that. I'd look in them kids' eyes and I'd tell them, hey, if that's some kid in a robe running up to you, if that kid's running up to you, he's not coming to you with a gift. It's not the gift you want. And you have to teach them that kind of stuff so you learn it. There's been all kinds of statistical analysis. Like right now, I think the worst county in Arizona for it is Mojave County. The people, they live out there, they're kind of isolated. All there is out there is a community-based outpatient clinic from Prescott. There's a vet center out there. I know several of the people that work there, and of course, Vegas is not far from there. But when you're out here, and like when I look out here, what I see in this room is hope. I see a community in here, because there's people that are in here that if somebody comes in here, how you doing today? I'm not doing so good. And you don't have to sit there and write a thesis on why you don't feel good. Hey, sit down. You know, you may not feel good, you're still ugly. Whatever, we're going to slap them around a little bit, but they're going to be part of this community. That's what can combat suicide. Because right now, the VA, the government, and the public at large is trying to address this as some kind of a mental issue. They're saying, oh, look at this. They have mental health issues. They have this. No, well, a lot of these people, they have injuries in their soul. These people are hurt, and they're hurt real bad. And they're starting to think, I'm not too sure it's worth keeping on anymore. I'm not too sure this is worth it anymore. They're dealing with that kind of stuff. So they've done analysis of this kind of stuff. People think, oh, it's these younger people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. That is not true. I think it's a lot of it is the Vietnam era cohort, because they've had to deal with so many things. And you know what? You're tired. After this is exhausting doing this stuff. I'll be going to a PTSD group 2 weeks from last, so that'll be a Tuesday, and then the one after that. And I'll go in there and how these people doing? It's kind of ebbing and flowing. You know, it's up and down. So there's all kinds of analysis about it. But when I go out, that's why I tell people I'm not a clinician. I didn't bring brochures. I bring a number for you to call. If you want to look me in the face and ask me a question, I am right here. And I will be here till you're done asking. And I may not have the answer. I may know where to find it. But when you talk to me, you're going to look me in the eyes, and you're going to see the truth of war in there. I'm going to see it in yours. And we're going to connect. I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, it's rough. There's a chance of suicide. I've lost people to suicide. Oh, I have lost. I don't want to get into that. That's hard, and some of you have too. So, anybody else got anything to say?
Travis, I would like to present this certificate of appreciation to you and welcoming you to the Order of the R.E.D. And this specifically states that we hereby recognize and commend Travis Burns for his honorable military service, veteran support initiatives, and support of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to present you with this Red Friday lapel pin, and in hopes that as you meander around the valley, that this might draw conversation and the question of what the hell is Red Friday, and you might then be able to promote this particular program and describe its merit. Thank you. We do appreciate you. Outstanding presentation.
Thank you, Dick.
Can I have a hoo-ah for this man?
Right on.
Thank you. I do have a couple of announcements that I would like to make. I sent out an email earlier this week from Nancy Fassbender regarding the Arizona Veterans Honor Tour Christmas in July. And that will start the first day of July and go through the end of July with a host of fantastic items that you can bid on or purchase direct. So I would encourage that beginning July 1, get online and take a look at that auction. All of the funding for that will be towards supporting the Arizona Veterans Honor Tour, which Nancy launched earlier this year, 501c organization. I introduced Mark and Steve Heineman, sons of Inez and Chuck Heineman, earlier this morning. I received a request from Chuck's wife, Inez, last evening requesting that I read a letter to you. And I want to do so. And it states, "Dear R.E.D. family, I'm sure you have noticed a couple of empty chairs that Chuck and I occupied on a regular basis. Chuck has struggled ever since he fell in Seattle on our trip in October. Recently, he spent 3 weeks in the hospital beginning on May 30. His pacemaker broke through his skin, which required a trip to ED and a 12-day stay in the heart hospital here in Mesa. During that time, he had 2 surgeries, one to remove the old pacemaker and another to place in a new one. He also received constant IV antibiotics throughout his hospital stay. When he returned home, he was under home health care. They instructed me on how to give Chuck his antibiotics at home. He did well for a couple of weeks until blood clots indicated, or blood test indicated, a problem with his kidneys. So I was back to the ED and the hospital again for another week. Now, during that time, Chuck and I had some long, hard talks. He decided he wanted to come home on hospice care. He's resting comfortably, surrounded by family. Chuck wanted me to tell you all how much he enjoyed coming to the group of friends and fellow patriots. It all started a few years ago when Chuck met a gentleman at Great Clips Haircut. When we came to our first meeting at IHOP, we received a warm welcome. With Dick's help and encouragement, Chuck was ultimately able to talk freely about his time in Vietnam, and our family is eternally grateful for those stories. Chuck felt this group was a cornerstone of his life. He looked forward to every Friday morning. He enjoyed visiting with so many of you and hearing your military stories. Chuck also enjoyed listening to Dick's stories about his lovely family in East Texas. You all know the ones Chuck's talking about. So thanks you all for your love and support. You'll be seeing me helping the ladies out name tag soon. With love and gratitude, Chuck's family. So let's send a shout out to Chuck. Chuck, here's a hoo-ah for you. Hoo-ah! Thank you. Also, I wanted to advise our first-time guest. Thank you for joining us today. We sincerely hope that you'll share in our camaraderie again, support our mission. Please know that you will always be welcome to join us here at Red Friday. And as a final reminder, let's not overlook the importance of our Red Friday mission to keep our deployed warfighters in our thoughts and prayers, and continue to demonstrate our support for these fine men and women. Please keep in mind that it is patriotism that unites us. Enjoy your weekend.